A biography before, because you have a very interesting life. You're how old now?
I'm 45.
You're 45 now. You started the company when you were
30.
30.
Yeah.
Before that, I mean, you kind of bounced around several states. Tell me the story. And had a learning experience that serves you well.
Well, we were in Thailand. I was just about almost 10 years old. And recently Thailand had a coup.
Right.
Well, in 1973 they had a coup. And I think it was 1973, 75 or something like that. And my parents thought that it was unsafe for us to be there. And so my parents put my older brother and me on a plane, sent us to Tacoma, Washington, where my uncle was. From there, they put us in a private school, a boarding school, and the one that they selected, I'm not exactly sure why, but my parents didn't know the United States very well, and probably didn't know that Kentucky was very far away. Right. From Washington.
So they sent you off to school in Kentucky.
So we ended up in a small town in Kentucky called Oneida. The website's still up. It's the Oneida Baptist Institute. Yes. And so my older brother and me went to Oneida Baptist Institute for about a year and a half or so, and it was a fabulous experience. We were the only two Chinese kids that had been there. And this was during a time when the United States was still rather learning about foreigners, and so everybody asked me whether I knew kung fu, and because of Bruce Lee, and obviously I didn't, but I was very good in math, and so all of the local kids took to me because I could help them with homework and things like that. And it was a small school. My job during the afternoons after you go to school, everybody has a task. My job would be to clean all the bathrooms of the dorm. It was a dorm of about 300 kids. And my older brother's job, he was 1 year older than me, so he was 11 years old. His job was to work in the tobacco farm. And so we would do this until my parents came, and then we flew back to Washington, where we met up with them. But it was people say, Jensen, you went to a school, and it turned out that school, I'm not even too sure how they positioned the school and why we went to it, but it's a boarding school that for international students somehow. That's also a reform school. And so, I don't know how they got into that business, but it turned out there were a lot of challenging, very, very difficult and very tough kids. My roommate was 17 years old, and I still remember that when we were getting ready for bed that night, he took off his shirt and he had stab wounds all over his body. Yeah. And so it turned out to be a wonderful kid. Didn't know how to read, but turned out to be a wonderful kid, and I learned a lot in that school.
What brought you to technology?
I was in high school in Oregon, and I was very good in math, and I was very good in science, and I'd always felt that I was going to be an engineer. One of my best friends in high school, the small group of us were exposed to the Apple II and a terminal that hooked us up with a mainframe. Yeah. And so we played a lot of games, wrote a lot of programs, and we were exposed to the computer early on. And so
this is a similar experience to Bill Gates.
Yeah, in fact, I'll argue that's right. And when he tells that story, it really resonates with me. Because
there was a machine in his school, put there by his mother.
Exactly.
And he will argue to you, as you know, that's what turned him on, and because of all those hours, and he became, as he said, I was just a maniac about this to me in a recent interview.
Yeah, yeah, and I fell in love with it myself. The video games was a big part of probably the reason why he initially. In our case, the mainframe had a video game called Star Trek on it, and we could play Star Trek in basically a virtual world battleship. Yeah. You make a move, they make a move, and we would play this across the network. Well, it wasn't a network; it's a mainframe, the cloud computing of that day. And we would play against all these other kids probably, and I wouldn't be surprised if Bill was on the other side playing.
Yeah. You created NVIDIA when?
1993.
And then went public in 1999.
Right. We, in fact, you know, somebody told me that this month was actually our 10th anniversary, and so of being public.
Yeah.
And so
January.
Yeah.